Welcome to Invisible Ink. I'm joined by Christian Donlan.
Hello.
And we've both been playing quite a lot of this.
Oh, I love it. Am I allowed to say that?
I think you're absolutely allowed to say that.
I love it.
Just to give you a quick introduction to what this video is, basically this will be the final mission in an Invisible Ink campaign, I guess you call it, or story.
Yeah, campaign. It feels weird to call it campaign because it's such a compressed period of time.
Sure.
I suppose that's...
time's a big part of it. You have 72 hours from the beginning of your story to prepare for this final mission, which makes that final mission extremely important, as you know they often are, but in this game in particular, the whole game is about trying to take risks to get as much stuff and be as well prepared as you can for that mission.
For this final mission. And I think it's safe to say this final mission does not disappoint.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, should I say whether or not it's a success or not? I think you can tell by the time of this video that maybe I'll leave it up to you. And yes, maybe the interesting thing here is that although Invisible Ink has been out in early access for about 9 months, I think.
Has it really been that long? Gosh.
Yeah, it's never had a proper final mission. This is one of the big changes that's coming with the final version, which is out on Tuesday. And this is going to be an early look at that. So if you have already been playing Invisible Ink, this is still going to be rather intriguing.
It doesn't feel like the kind of game where showing the final mission is a spoiler as such, because it's more of the same, just much more difficult.
Sure. Right here you can see that I've got 3 characters for this mission. 2 of these are unique for the final mission. Monster and Central join you for that. So I only actually have 1 agent left at this stage. At one point during my story, I had 4 agents, Christian Donlan.
Yeah,
you know how tough that is.
I know. And
to get that.
If I kind of just say, if you are trying to guess whether he is going to be successful or not,
1 agent.
That's a pretty
tell you
big
something.
tell in the poker world.
It was incredible. I mean, you need quite a considerable amount of luck to even get the right number of detention centres to get these agents. There are certain types of missions which have a chance of giving you an extra agent.
And then when you get 4, because I'm at the point in the game I'm playing at the moment, I've got 4 and I'm 1 mission away from the final mission. And I'm terrified.
That sounds like a great spot to be, right?
Well, it's kind of a great spot, but it's also completely terrifying because you're like, well, I really can't... Suddenly you think, I almost have to sacrifice what I might get from this mission just to make sure I don't lose anyone.
Yep, and that's a theme throughout Invisible Ink, which we'll delve into in a second. But first of all, just check out these freaking guards. The guards in this final mission are horrible.
Oh, they're no nonsense.
If just knocking them out adds to your security level. I think one of them later on that I take out just puts a random daemon on one of the...
I hate...
One of the objects in the game.
So we should explain, daemons are programs which come onto your network when you're hacking into things.
Yeah, so there's 2 key parts to a mission in Invisible Ink. You've got this bit, the running around, the sneaking, the potentially punching this guy in the back of the head, that stuff, and then you've got the hacking, which is there. You just saw a little glimpse of it, I think.
Yeah, you go to the incognito screen and you can see kind of the network of each level.
Yeah, it's not as boring as it sounds.
No, it's actually really thrilling.
Yeah.
It's absolutely thrilling. And I tell you, they have nailed that sound when you hack something. That kind of symbol, the symbol sound is just so intensely rewarding.
This final version of the game, by the way, has some... If we're going to talk audio, have you found the bazaar yet? The actual shop where you buy like your hacking programs from a cat?
Yes, and it's like the music you would put on your GeoCities website.
Yes, but it's
from like the 1990s.
It's so good. I'm going to have to put some in at this stage, I think, so people can know what we're talking about.
The early days of the internet resounded to that kind of music. It feels like this is a very much kind of a glory days of the 90s internet kind of game. It's one of those, it is sort of a slightly retro look at the future of hacking and stuff like that.
An incredibly stylish look at the future as well.
Oh, God, it's beautiful.
The characters themselves are all so cool. Like, they're the coolest spies.
And I love the fact that the faces are made up of it's like a low poly approach to the character portraits. So Control has this amazing kind of Sigourney Weaver style jaw, which is just rendered in blunt geometry. It looks amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
She is definitely, by the way, Central is definitely inspired by Archer's mum. Mallory. Is it Mallory?
I don't know, but I'm assuming that is Lucille from Arrested Development.
Yes. Okay.
Anyone inspired by Lucille from Arrested Development is okay in my book.
Right.
I never cared for Joe.
That's fine. So I've managed to take out the first guard here. And this is, my second turn, and look at the security levels already starting to creep up.
It's great. So the security level is one of the really great things about the game, because...
It's essential.
Yeah, because this is a game which... And XCOM has always had this problem, is how do you stop players progressing through the game very cautiously? And in in Invisible Ink, every turn you take adds to the security level, which slowly goes up, and the more you dally, the more it is making the environment more dangerous. It's just a really lovely sort of hand at the back
and
pushing
every
forward.
mistake you make along the way as well will add to it. As just taking out that guard, for example, being spotted by another guard up here, my security level has now gone up, which means to start with it's okay. Like, I think that means a few more cameras have been turned on in this map, but you get to like security level 3 and you're looking at extra guards.
Security level 6
you're
is
looking
like game over.
There definitely is going to be a crossover in terms of the people who play games like X, and particularly with the resurgence, I think, with the reboot. And we'll look at this and go, this is quite similar, and it is. There are definite it's a turn-based strategy game. The consequence, permadeath, that's all there, but it's also extremely fresh. Like, it's a turn-based strategy game, but it's also a game about spying and hacking, and those two things are somehow... how have they been put together? I don't understand it.
I know, it's just like it's sort of stealth. Like, it's a turn-based strategy game about avoiding conflict, which is really... It's the best stealth game I've played in years.
Which is why that security level and the kind of meter that keeps ticking is so important, because a turn-based stealth game sounds incredibly easy. You just sit somewhere and you wait it out and then you move, which is how a lot of stealth games work. And
this is the most, that's a really good point. This is the most dynamic stealth game I think I've played, probably since Conviction, which barely feels like a stealth game in comparison.
Yeah, the Conviction. I
love Conviction. I love it.
The co-op, and it was great.
It's lovely.
So to give you an idea of what the actual objective here is in this final mission. So in the early access up until this point, there has been a finale, but it was generally, I think, just a much more difficult version of missions you'd already done. This one has quite a unique flavour to it because you have these two extra characters that you've never seen before, and you're also so I think you have to you hack a mainframe first, which takes a little while to open a security door somewhere later on in the level, and then presumably you pop Incognita, which is the name of the kind of
your AI
AI network that you're a part of. Also the original name of this game at one point.
Also the AI network is going crazy throughout this level.
Yes, it's going a little bit Cortana right now, and like some of the dialogue is great.
It's brilliant. Can we talk briefly about, I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but like Clay Entertainment, who made this, are just the most intriguing people.
Yeah, I mean,
out there.
They do a lot of very different types of games. This isn't their first dabble in early access either. They did, Don't Starve has kind
one of the initial
been
early
in there
access
and
games.
done very well.
And it's done well because they get early access as well. It's not just about getting access to your money early. It's kind of going, this game is going to develop. And Invisible Ink has changed so much over the course of its history in early access.
Definitely. Yeah.
Even though it remained
was much more like XCOM at the beginning.
And it had a layer of obfuscation which they've just kind of gotten rid of. So like I remember in the first version I ever played, where you'd position an agent and then you'd have to separately control the way they were facing at the end of the turn.
Right.
And it's really interesting. At the time I was like, this is really good. Mm-hmm. And then when they removed it, you're like, actually you didn't need that. It didn't add to your choices in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I'm actually working on a separate piece about Clay and how they've tackled early access here. And I spoke to them last night about kind of how this game has changed because of it. Like, so it sounds like, how these the levels are procedurally generated, but it's generally like a floor like this, and they all look quite similar, but have a kind of maybe a different.
There'll be different corporate art or something.
Yeah,
like
sure. At one point, this was all going to be part of the same tower, and it was almost like a dungeon crawler, which as you progress through each level, you were going up a level in the building.
You see, this is why I could never be a designer, because that is a great idea.
Yeah.
And what they've done now is a great idea with this map where you have 72 hours and you're bombing around the map and going for each of these little instance missions. I would never be able to choose between that.
Sure, well, they didn't either. That came from community feedback. That's what I mean. That's how early access has kind of changed this game. I mean, it wasn't quite as direct as that. There wasn't a forum post saying the way you should do this is this, but just little kind of questions about how this corporation was working, and it was easier to get that across by having a ship that went around on a world map.
I think it's incredible that they were that receptive to that as well. And I think a lot of early access developers, they turn up there and they plant their game there, and then they studiously don't listen to the community. The thing I always think about this, sorry for a bit of a tangent, is did you know John Candy was meant to be in Ghostbusters? Do you know this story?
No.
John Candy was meant to be in Ghostbusters, and he was meant to be Louis Tully, who is Rick Moranis.
Right.
And he said to Ivan Reitman, I'm kind of having a trouble like getting what this character should be. I think the character of the neighbor should be like a German guy who has all of these Alsatians. And obviously that's nothing like Lewis Tully in the final thing. But whenever I think, I'd quite like to be a creative person, I think back to that and I think I'm really glad I'm not a creative person because it's so hard deciding.
Sure.
I mean, imagine being Ivan Reitman and going, I don't think the German guy with the Alsatians is right for this movie.
Yeah.
And just sort of turning down something which sounds so brilliant. And I know that's a sort of an odd tangent, but I feel that's the same thing you see with this.
I think that's a dilemma with almost every early access game because there's a danger of, some community feedback, although it may sound good initially, isn't going to make for a great game. And it may dilute your vision. The changes aren't necessarily always going to be for the better.
It's incredible how, and talking of vision, it's incredible how Clay they've never retraced their steps. They've never kind of gone, I know they did Shank 2, that's one example. Mm-hmm. Like, they've never kind of gone back to exactly the same design, the same sort of game, which is why they're so exciting, because they change genre a little bit each time, and it's always brilliant. But if you look at all of their games, they are of a piece. So like Mark of the Ninja is obviously like a really brilliant, dynamic, kind of muscular stealth game.
Sure.
And then Don't Starve, it introduces the whole kind of try not to lose element, even though it's real time and, it's sort of survivalist.
Sure,
and
more of a consequence too.
Yeah, and this feels like a really natural progression from there, like just, even though it introduces like a grid and turn-based, it thrills me how all of their games are so different, but that they have this really distinct thing that goes beyond their art style.
So we've just found the security hub, which was what I mentioned before. This needs to be hacked specifically by one of the new characters, Monster here, who, fortunately, these levels are procedurally generated. I didn't know that it was going to be over there, and I'd left him on his own whilst the other two wandered off to the other side of the building. So he's actually right next to the thing he can access.
You got lucky. Can I just say about the procedural generation?
Yeah.
That the first time I played this game, the first time I played Invisible Ink, it with the procedural generation, they were still ironing out the kinks. It put me in a room that didn't have any exits. I spawned in a room that didn't have any exits.
Oh God!
A wonderful moment.
So I mean,
I didn't ace that.
I still, I can imagine. I still kind of really. I was umming and ahhing about whether or not I preferred the idea of procedurally generated rooms or very finely crafted things, where the developer had a very clear vision of how that mission worked. It's definitely won me around. Yeah. The idea that you can waste time and resources like your power, like hacking into a room that ends up being empty and having no value to it, sounds frustrating, and it is, but that adds into the whole dynamic of Invisible Ink. It's a game about how greedy do you want to be before you escape the level. And also, it's got that thing that the best roguelikes have, which is exploration is a resource. The amount of time you're devoting to exploration, you could be devoting to something else. Mm-hmm. And this is absolutely nailed it. So like the procedural generation in this works exactly like procedural generation in something like Spelunky is. It presents constant risks and potential reward, like you're saying. It's just lovely stuff. And anyway, we're coming up to the end here, so I'm gonna have to spoil it now. I didn't complete the final mission. What a surprise! I'd like to put out. I was playing on Expert and Iron Man, and it's oh god! Game. I mean, like you were playing on a level of this game which I am terrified to even look at. But yes, so I did manage to hack the terminal, and on the very last turn, I think it took like maybe 3 or 4 turns to get through. Yeah. On the very last turn, he manages to complete it, and there are 2 guards standing on either side of him, both pointing their guns at him. And I thought that would be a perfect ending for Monster. Maybe that's where he dies and the other 2 go on and complete the mission. You still need him for the second part. I've got an even better one, which when I was doing the same mission, and again I died, as I got to the end of the hacking the final terminal, the security level went up and it added another layer to the terminal. No. So I then had to hold out for another round, and then it went very badly wrong. Yeah, and Invisible Ink is a game about that. So if that sounds fun, check it out on Tuesday. The final release is there, or you may already have been playing it for the last 9 months, and if so, hopefully you like an early sneak peek of the final mission that we didn't manage to complete, because it's really hard. Yes. Cool. We like this game. We really like it, yeah. Excellent, thank you.
And then I just fancied a break from you guys.
Charming.
Oh, go on, cheer up. Do you know what would cheer you up? Do you want to say it? Go on.
Coming up this week, Silent Hill's We Barely Knew Ye. We bid farewell to sexy digital Norman Reedus.